Hi, welcome to Detours, Understanding Acquired Brain Injury. And today's a unique episode, and we're doing this on Zoom because I want to introduce you to another co-host. Now, you've seen on my other video, you've met Kate, who's my primary co-host, but I want to introduce somebody else who has a lot of different knowledge about a different area. And hi, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, I'm Lisa C. I had 2 brain injuries 4 years ago.
Okay. And could you talk a little bit about like what happened? Could you describe what happened?
The first one was one of my dogs was running toward my daughter and pulled me off the porch. And the second one, I think I just missed a step somehow. It was late at night, and I fell into the flower bed. But that one wasn't as bad as the first one.
Now, what happened with the first one? You said your dog pulled you when she went up to greet,
Yeah,
your dog went up to greet your daughter. St. Bernard, that's a pretty big dog. That's definitely the kind of thing that would definitely hit your head. So were you unconscious for that one, or can you talk a little bit about it?
I was unconscious for a little bit from what I'm told, but I don't remember anything for like 3 days.
And those of you where we've talked about post-traumatic amnesia being the defining factor, 1 to 7 days typically represents moderate brain injury. So Lisa suffered a moderate traumatic brain injury based on post-traumatic amnesia, which seems to be a better way of measuring severity. And so she suffered moderate brain injury. She also has an acquired brain injury of a non-traumatic kind. Can you talk to us a little bit about what also you have as a diagnosis?
Yes, I was born with cerebral palsy from birth.
Okay. Can you describe how that affects you neurologically as well? I mean, obviously some motor deficits, but also how that has affected you cognitively.
Basically, with my processing and making decisions, I have a hard time with that.
And that's always been a bit of a challenge then. So
Yes.
okay.
More so now since I had the brain injury.
Right. Okay. And this is something important to note, that after traumatic brain injury, many times it exacerbates an already existing condition. Traumatic brain injury makes things that we have worse. And people who have already one TBI, oftentimes their second makes things much worse. My own case with one serious TBI, the first one, and a second one comes along, makes things worse. You're very similar in that way. And you've had a fall, and falls are the most common cause of TBIs. And we're not simply talking about slipping and falling, like walking, although that can cause them. We're typically talking about like a hard hit and altered consciousness. Now, you said you did not necessarily lose consciousness for more than a short time, but you also then were altered after. Can you talk about your symptoms a little bit after your first traumatic brain injury with the dog having pulled you? Some of your symptoms?
That's if I remember them. I mean, I was told that I was talking a little bit, but I don't remember any of it. I mean, I remember going to a different hospital, and they helped me there, and I had rehab and physical therapy. Thankfully, my memory was pretty bad, at least short term. It's getting better slowly. Some days are better than other days. I have gotten a lot better since the injuries, but my processing and making decisions is still hard.
And since you already have those from birth, likely that will always be a problem. However, it gets exacerbated due to the areas that are affected, mostly executive dysfunction. We've talked a lot about executive dysfunction since frontal lobe injury is the most common type of injury, and many times most people have executive dysfunction, and it's like there are different ways to manage it. Can you talk a little bit about how you manage some of the ways you manage your executive problems? Those like,
Well, simplicity is very important to me. I did go back to work,
mm,
thankfully. I think a lot of it is time, believe it or not. I mean, it seems to get better. Processing doesn't, but making decisions, not so much. But just in general, I've gotten better, with time, thankfully. My depression isn't as bad as it was. My anxiety isn't that bad. It depends on the situation and depends on my mood too.
mm.
Yeah.
And you've done pretty well, especially considering it's been 4 years. You're back to work, and you've got kids, and you got to worry about your husband, and you know um, things like that. And that requires a lot of executive tasking. But you to break it down into smaller steps, make things simple, that kind of thing, and that's really important.
Yes.
Share
Very
some
important.
strategies and things you do outside of like breaking it down. What other things do you do to help you?
Um, wow. I still do the same thing. Cook, clean,
Mm,
um, take my kids wherever they have to go. You know, that's really a lot of it, honestly.
mm.
Take care of our rabbits. Hmm, That's a lot of
Okay.
it.
Are there any strategies, things, anything you would recommend to people who are new, who have recent brain injury, anything like that? Is there anything you'd recommend?
Um, wow. Like I said, simplicity is the most important. Trying to make things or find things as simple as possible to do one thing at a time.
Mm,
Do not multitask because that does not go too well because you will get frustrated. I can tell you that. Um, Even if you do find a job, try to, talk to your, boss to try to find and make and explain to them
mhm.
what your problems are so they understand if they have to, you know, re restate the question that they want you to do, you
Right.
know. But yeah, try to find a simple job, this way you'll feel better. So it's not too overwhelming for you because you will get neural fog, it's brain fog as well, or
Hmm.
neural fatigue, sorry.
Neurofatigue. Yeah.
And that will, especially during the day, taking Concerta to help you focus. Yes.
No, that is something we've talked about. Is like because I use, and so does our other co-host. She takes Concerta also, so it helps with executive deficits. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, I could tell you it definitely helps you focus. I mean, that I know, and it gets you through the day. That I do know, and it helps keep you awake for the whole day, especially when the afternoon comes and you are feeling tired, from too much, whatever you're doing,
Mm.
in your job. It'll help you with your clear things, and just keep you going.
Concerta is a short-acting ADD, ADHD medication. Is a stimulant. It's used to help. Originally, it was used to, and still is used to help kids who need that little bit of like extra bridge, usually those who have ADD, ADHD, but it also helps, research shows, people with traumatic brain injury or acquired brain injury to help them with a lot of the executive deficits, focus, attention. Those of us who have neurofatigue, as Lisa does and I do and Kate does, she mentions that in her video. But I also want to talk with her a little more in depth, because she covers a lot of like health topics, things like that. And as I said, she's an athlete and experienced with health topics, and so we'll be speaking with her about that a little bit too later. We'll get into some of those things, and all of us take that stuff, and so it helps. It doesn't necessarily help everyone, but it is a possible thing to maybe speak to your doctor. And one of the advantages of it is very short acting. And so it allows you to control your focus, like when you need more of it versus when you are having more restful, like weekend or whatever, you maybe don't need it. And so you can relax, but it helps over short spans to do that, which really is one of its main advantages. Okay. Can you talk about like any of your like residual symptoms, things that are still left, symptoms that you have that still get in your way? So we know processing is a problem, and some of that kind of higher like that complex thinking. And we talked about that in another video of mine about abstraction and higher level thinking. Steps need to be broken down, things like that. So can you talk about some of the symptoms that remain for you?
A lot of it is making decisions. That's my biggest issue.
Mm,
Believe it or not, humor. You
okay.
know, um, organization is another one. Usually I'm very good with my organization, but recently, since the brain injury, I'm having a hard time with that.
Mm,
But the biggest thing for me is making a decision. It could be the most simplest decision.
mm,
And I just, nope, can't do it.
mm,
And I usually need, either my husband's help or either my kids' help to help me, you know, make a decision for me to make it
mm,
simple. And that drives me crazy because I'm never usually like that.
mm.
So
And
that's the biggest things I have a problem with. And just processing,
right.
anything that happens. It'll take me a whole day to understand something, depending on what it is. And then, basically realize, okay, that's what that's about, or, whatever the situation is, just to come, just to understand things better. That's my biggest problems.
Okay. And finally, just you know, um, what what do you plan on like talking about in the future? Different videos, because as you'll be joining us, here on Detours, can you tell us, because every co-host can make their own videos. I mean, we'll be doing some stuff collaboratively, but you're free to make videos as you come up with ideas, or it's like talk about things that interest you. So, I mean, you're a mom, you work, it's like, and do you have your rabbits and like stuff that pertains to brain injury? So you're free to do things that interest you. So any, like share with us things you might want to talk about.
Oh boy. I mean, basically just helping people, if they have questions or if they're, you know, feeling anxious or if they're feeling depressed, I could help them the best way I can. I'm not a therapist, but I could help them because, you know, what I've gone through, especially from the first one, is very hard.
Mm,
I was very depressed from my first injury. So I've gotten better, especially because, strange enough, it's almost like I have a voice in my head that kicks in. It's almost like reality speaks to me like, okay, let's get back to normal. You're okay. You have your husband
mm,
and kids. You're okay. And that's what helped me get through everything.
mm,
Um, so yeah, basically helping to the best of my degree, ability to help with that.
mm,
And like, if you are a mom and, you know, you're having issues taking care of your kids, like what you can do, that'll help your life easier, make it easier for you. Maybe with a job, depending on what your job is, if it's a corporate job, well, and depending on what kind of problems you have with the executive function, that could be kind of difficult too, depending on your supervisor. Maybe talk to them, like I said before. And the biggest thing is humor, like finding something, you know, that makes you happy. Like either your animal, your pets, or just something on TV. If you want to watch something funny on either the Comedy Channel, or I love to watch Family Feud for entertainment. You
Mhm.
know, that's the biggest things, like humor, simplicity, and just, if you're having any, you know, issues, with your mental health, I could try to help with that the best I can.
Okay, and this is something then, so what we're going to talk about here is like, if you have questions or anything like that, please post them below and direct them towards Lisa. If you have specific questions in those kind of areas that, she will be able to like respond to. We'll probably then do some Q&A with her at some point. And, areas she could talk about, she had mentioned about family and like concerns about those, that women seem to be more adversely affected. And I want to get into this later on neurologically by concussions and traumatic brain injuries because of physiological factors. It has to do with how the neurons are smaller and more likely to break because of body size and because of how energy is delivered. But we do find research suggests that women are more adversely affected. And those who are at mom ages, it's like they find, and unfortunately, society still today, it's like women carry more of the burden. Not only do they have to work outside the house, they also then end up with more of the housework. It's not fair, but unfortunately it happens a lot. And so like any questions from women towards Lisa about these kind of things, please post below and post on other videos. Hey Lisa, are you? And so maybe what I will do is I'll call this section Hey Lisa and devote it, that'll be where her videos will go. And if you have things you want to ask her, direct them towards her in that section. And so we'll talk about those kind of things, and we'll do more interview style and approach things in that fashion too. And so if you're interested, please direct them that way. And so I just want to again thank you very much for being interviewed and for joining us. I do appreciate that. So
Oh, you're quite welcome.
and
It's been
so
a pleasure.
thank you very much. I appreciate that. And so yeah, so thank you very much. And
You're welcome.
so hopefully we'll talk again soon on this channel. And so
Yes.
those of you, and I just want to wrap up for Detours saying, hopefully you please like and subscribe and click that bell icon for more content like this. Please do comment below. It does help drive our topics. As you see with Lisa, she would like to engage in that way. So it's important for you to put comments specifically in her section, but elsewhere too. We always welcome comments and suggestions. And so this style format, especially for for what I'll be calling Hey Lisa then, and so things we can direct in her direction for answering questions and any of those kind of areas and other things too. So again, thank you, and we will see you in our next episode. So bye.
Yes.